Your Honor, I've been a deputy for 15 years. I know a drug dealer when I see one. The cop's voice echoed through the courtroom as he pointed straight at the black woman in the orange jumpsuit. And she's exactly the type. A few jurors nodded. The prosecutor didn't object. The judge kept writing. The woman he was talking about didn't cry. Didn't argue. Didn't even flinch. She sat there quietly, hands folded, eyes locked on the man destroying her with lies, a man who was smiling because he knew the system was on his side. To him, she was just another poor black woman. No money. No power. No voice. Another easy conviction. What that cop didn't know, what no one in that courtroom knew, was that every lie he was telling under oath was being recorded, documented, and would end his career forever. Because the woman he was humiliating in court wasn't a criminal. She was an FBI agent investigating him. Before we go further, drop your city or state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. And if you believe justice should matter more than badges and power, hit like and subscribe. Whitmore County sat right in the middle of America's heartland, flat farmland, quiet roads, church signs on every corner, and a population just under 60,000. It was the kind of place politicians used in campaign ads. Flags on porches. Kids riding bikes without helmets. Friday night football lights glowing like a promise that everything here was safe, simple, and honest. People trusted the police in Whitmore County. Not just trusted, believed in them. Deputies were invited to barbecues, waved through traffic, thanked in grocery store lines. Parents told their kids, if you're ever in trouble, find an officer. The sheriff's department was seen as the last line between order and chaos. But for some residents, that trust had long since cracked. Over the past 5 years, more than 20 formal complaints had been filed against deputies in the Whitmore County Sheriff's Department. Traffic stops that turned aggressive. Searches conducted without consent. Drugs found where none had existed moments earlier. Arrests that never made sense. Every complaint followed the same path. Filed. Reviewed internally. Dismissed. Stamped with the same word every time, unfounded. The names on the complaints changed. The dates changed. But the people filing them didn't. Most were black. Some Latino. Almost all from the same parts of town. And no one in power ever asked why. At the center of it all stood Deputy Kyle Brennan. 15 years on the force. Clean uniform. Confident stride. Commendations framed on his office wall. He shook hands with county commissioners, drank with fellow deputies after shift, and spoke openly about keeping Whitmore County from turning into somewhere else. His brother-in-law sat on the county commission. The sheriff trusted him without question. Prosecutors loved him because his cases always stuck. Kyle Brennan didn't just enforce the law in Whitmore County. He defined it. If Brennan said he smelled marijuana, the report said marijuana. If Brennan said a suspect was aggressive, the file said aggressive. If Brennan said drugs were in plain view, no one asked how they got there. Because in Whitmore County, deputies like Kyle Brennan weren't questioned. They were believed. And that unquestioned belief was exactly what made the town dangerous. Especially for someone no one thought mattered. Her name, at least the one listed on every form in Whitmore County, was Iris Spencer. According to the paperwork, she was 29 years old. Recently moved from out of state. No family nearby. No criminal history worth mentioning. She worked a quiet job that paid just enough to keep the lights on and drove an aging sedan that blended into traffic so well, no one ever remembered it. That was exactly the point. To the town, Iris was invisible, the kind of woman people looked through, not at. She kept her head down, paid in cash, spoke politely, and never stayed anywhere long enough to draw attention. Neighbors knew her as that quiet woman in 3B. Cashiers recognized her face but not her name. What Whitmore County didn't know, what no one was supposed to know, was that Iris Spencer didn't exist. The woman wearing her face was Special Agent Iris Daniels, assigned to the FBI's Civil Rights Division. She had been brought into the case after a quiet stack of reports crossed a federal desk in Washington, complaints that never became lawsuits, arrests that never made headlines, patterns that didn't scream corruption on their own but whispered it when lined up side by side. The Bureau didn't need noise. They needed proof. Iris volunteered knowing exactly what that meant. No badge. No backup. No intervention until the moment was right. If a deputy crossed the line, she couldn't flinch. If she was stopped, searched, or arrested, she had to let it happen. Every reaction had to look real. Every moment had to be lived through. Hidden inside her car were federal-grade recording devices. Audio capture built into everyday objects. A system designed to survive traffic stops, searches, even impound. Her handlers warned her before she ever drove into Whitmore County. If this works, careers will end, one supervisor said. If it fails, you'll be on your own. Iris accepted without hesitation. She had worked cases like this before. But this one felt different. The complaints weren't just about bad stops or rude language. They described fear. Humiliation. Lives quietly wrecked while the rest of the town went on believing everything was fine. Iris didn't come to Whitmore County to make noise. She came to watch. To wait. And to let the people who thought they were untouchable prove it themselves. Because the most dangerous thing about a corrupt system isn't what it does in the dark. It's what it feels confident doing in plain sight. It didn't take long for Iris to understand how Whitmore County really worked. From the outside, traffic stops looked routine, a flicker of red and blue, a few minutes on the shoulder, paperwork signed, everyone on their way. But when Iris started paying attention, a pattern emerged that was impossible to ignore. Certain neighborhoods were stopped more than others. Certain drivers were questioned longer. Certain cars were searched far more often. And almost every time, the same name appeared on the report. Deputy Kyle Brennan. Brennan worked like clockwork. He positioned his cruiser near the edges of town, just far enough from the sheriff's building to avoid witnesses, close enough to claim jurisdiction. He favored late afternoons and early evenings, times when commuters were tired, distracted, eager to get home. His justification was always the same. Smelled marijuana. Nervous behavior. Reaching movements. When body cameras malfunctioned, they malfunctioned during Brennan's stops. When dash cams were blocked, they were blocked by accident. Evidence appeared where none had been moments earlier, always just enough to justify an arrest, never enough to raise eyebrows. Iris logged everything. She recorded the pauses before Brennan spoke. The way his tone shifted when he realized who he had stopped. The smirk that appeared just before he ordered people out of their cars. She documented dates, times, badge numbers, and the subtle cues of someone who had done this so many times he no longer felt the need to hide it. Inside the department, there were whispers. Deputy Megan Hole, Brennan's regular partner, had noticed it too. She was newer to the force, quieter, and far less comfortable with the shortcuts Brennan took. More than once, she had asked questions, small ones, careful ones, and every time, Brennan shut them down with the same line. Don't overthink it. This is how the job gets done. Megan stopped asking. The FBI, watching from a distance, confirmed Iris's findings. The data matched. The patterns were clear. What they didn't have yet was the moment that would hold up in court, the undeniable line crossed in real time. And Iris knew something else, something her training had taught her to recognize. Men like Kyle Brennan didn't slow down. They didn't stop. They escalated. It wasn't a matter of if he crossed that line with her. It was only a matter of when. The stop happened on a Tuesday evening, just before sunset. Iris had been driving exactly 5 miles under the speed limit, both hands on the wheel, turn signal clicked on a full 3 seconds before she changed lanes. She didn't need her training to tell her something was wrong. The feeling hit the moment the black and white cruiser pulled in behind her and stayed there. Too close. Too patient. When the red and blue lights finally flashed, her stomach tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. She guided the car onto the shoulder, shut off the engine, and waited. Deputy Kyle Brennan approached from the driver's side. "Evening," he said, his tone casual, eyes already scanning the interior. "You know why I pulled you over?" Iris shook her head slowly. "No, sir." "You drifted over the line back there," Brennan replied, though his eyes never left her hands. "License and registration." She handed them over without a word. Brennan leaned back, sniffed the air exaggeratedly, then smiled like he'd just won something. "You smell that?" "I don't, sir," Iris said evenly. "Smells like marijuana to me," he replied. "Step out of the vehicle." Iris complied. As she stood on the shoulder, Brennan circled the car, tapping the trunk with his flashlight, dragging out the moment. Deputy Megan Hole arrived a minute later, pulling up behind them. She watched silently as Brennan opened the driver's door without asking for consent. "This won't take long," he said, already rummaging through the center console. Iris said nothing. Then Brennan stopped. "Well now," he muttered, crouching near the floorboard. He reached under the seat and pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside were several pills. Megan's eyes widened. "Kyle." "Looks like possession," Brennan cut in quickly. He held the bag up, just long enough for Megan to see it before sealing it again. "Step back, Megan." He turned to Iris, his voice harder now. "Care to explain this?" "That isn't mine," Iris said calmly. Brennan smirked. "They always say that." He spun her around, cuffed her wrists tightly, and read her rights with practiced boredom. As he pushed her toward the cruiser, he leaned in close and whispered, low enough that Megan couldn't hear. "You people always mess up eventually." Megan stood frozen, her hand hovering near her radio. She had seen searches before. She had seen arrests. But she had never seen evidence appear out of thin air. As Iris was placed in the back seat, her face remained calm, unreadable. Inside the car, hidden recorders captured everything, the words, the movements, the exact moment a career-ending mistake was made. Brennan thought he had just made another easy arrest. What he had really done was trigger the beginning of the end. The holding cell smelled like disinfectant and stale air. Iris sat on the metal bench, wrists aching where the cuffs had been too tight, orange fabric stiff against her skin. Around her, the jail moved the way it always did, doors buzzing, officers laughing down the hall, paperwork sliding across desks. To everyone else, this was routine. To Iris, it was exactly what she had prepared for, and exactly what still hurt more than training manuals ever admitted. Her booking photo was taken without ceremony. Fingerprints rolled. Personal belongings bagged and tagged. No one asked questions. No one seemed curious about how a quiet traffic stop had turned into a drug arrest so quickly. Bail was set the next morning. $50,000. The public defender assigned to her case didn't hide his frustration. He was overworked, underpaid, and already convinced of the outcome. "Deputy Brennan's word carries weight here," he said quietly, flipping through her file. "Without proof, this is going to be an uphill fight." Iris nodded, saying only what her cover allowed. "I understand." What she didn't say was that proof already existed, hours of it, locked inside evidence systems Brennan didn't know he triggered. Her handlers had confirmed receipt of the files within minutes of the arrest. They told her to stay the course. Do not reveal. Not yet. In the sheriff's department, Brennan was in a good mood. He joked with co-workers about another bust, typed his report with confidence, and made sure every box supported his version of events. Smell of marijuana. Probable cause. Drugs in plain view. The prosecutor accepted it without hesitation. Megan Hole, however, didn't sleep that night. She replayed the stop over and over in her mind, the moment Brennan reached under the seat, the split-second hesitation before he pulled the bag out, the look on Iris's face when she realized what was happening. It wasn't right. And she knew it. Still, she said nothing. Days passed. Then weeks. Iris remained quiet, composed, almost invisible as her case moved through the system. The town barely noticed. Another name on the docket. Another arrest that fit the story Whitmore County liked to tell itself. But beneath the surface, pressure was building. Federal analysts mapped Brennan's arrests against past complaints. Patterns aligned. Timestamps matched. His lies, repeated often enough to feel safe, began to stack on top of each other. And Brennan, feeling untouchable, grew careless. By the time the trial date was set, he was already planning how he'd testify, confident, authoritative, convincing. He had no idea the courtroom he was about to step into wasn't a place of protection. It was a trap. One designed to let him lie freely, clearly, and on the record. Because sometimes, the fastest way to expose corruption is to let it speak for itself. The courtroom was full the morning the trial began. Not because anyone thought the case was special, but because Deputy Kyle Brennan was testifying. People trusted him. Some came out of habit. Others came because they liked watching justice move quickly when the outcome felt certain. Iris sat at the defense table in her orange jumpsuit, hands folded, expression neutral. If anyone noticed how calm she was, they didn't comment on it. Defendants were supposed to look nervous. Guilty people always did. Brennan took the stand with ease. He spoke clearly. Confidently. He explained how he'd noticed Iris drifting between lanes. How he'd smelled marijuana the moment he approached her car. How her nervous behavior raised red flags. He described the discovery of pills under the driver's seat as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. When the prosecutor asked if he had any doubt about what he'd seen, Brennan shook his head. None, he said. I've done this long enough to know when something's wrong. The jurors listened closely. The judge nodded. Everything was going exactly the way Brennan expected. Then the public defender stood. He didn't rush. Didn't argue. He simply asked Brennan to walk through the stop again, slowly. Where he stood. Which door he opened first. How long the search took. Brennan answered without hesitation. And that's when the first screen flickered on. Deputy, the defender said calmly, is this your body camera footage? Brennan glanced at the monitor and smiled. Yes. The video played. At first, it matched his testimony. The stop. The conversation. The search. A few jurors relaxed. Then the angle shifted. A second video appeared beside the first. Then a third. The room went silent. The footage showed Brennan's hand dipping under the seat before he claimed to find anything. It showed him pausing, glancing toward Megan Hole, then pulling the bag out from a place it hadn't been seconds earlier. The defender didn't speak. He let the silence do the work. Brennan's jaw tightened. The judge leaned forward. The prosecutor stiffened. Deputy Brennan, the defender said, can you explain why the evidence appears in your hand before it appears on the floor? Brennan opened his mouth, then closed it. The defender turned toward the judge. Your Honor, we move to dismiss all charges. The judge didn't rule immediately. Instead, he looked at Iris. Miss Spencer, he said carefully, would you like to address the court? For the first time since her arrest, Iris stood. She reached into her pocket and removed a small leather case, opening it slowly. Inside was a badge. Your Honor, she said evenly, her voice steady, my name is Special Agent Iris Daniels, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've been assigned to an ongoing civil rights investigation into the Whitmore County Sheriff's Department, including Deputy Kyle Brennan. The courtroom erupted. Gasps. Shouts. Chairs scraping back. Brennan went pale. The judge slammed his gavel. Order. Iris didn't raise her voice. The recordings you just saw, she continued, are only a fraction of the evidence collected over the past 6 months. The judge dismissed the jury on the spot. Deputy Kyle Brennan was escorted out of the courtroom, not as a witness, not as an officer, but as a suspect. The lie that had once protected him had just become the thing that destroyed him. The moment Brennan left the courtroom in handcuffs, whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into shocked gasps. People who had come expecting a routine case now realized they were witnessing something far bigger, a high-ranking law enforcement officer exposed for lying under oath and attempting to manipulate the justice system. Iris sat calmly at the defense table, her eyes scanning the room. She knew this was only the beginning. The federal investigation had meticulously documented every encounter, every conversation, and every misstep by Brennan. The courtroom was just a stage where years of careful preparation now paid off. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Headlines were being written even before the gavel had fully come down. Deputy arrested in FBI sting, justice for black woman after police lie exposed, federal agent catches law enforcement officer in courtroom. Social media exploded with outrage, debate, and praise. Inside, the judge called for a recess. When the courtroom emptied slightly, Iris finally spoke to her legal team. "Keep the footage secure," she said. "There are more layers to uncover." The prosecutors reviewed the evidence with fresh eyes. Emails, bodycam footage, and undercover recordings all painted a chilling picture of Brennan's misconduct. It wasn't just a traffic stop, it was a series of abuses meant to intimidate, fabricate charges, and cover a network of corruption within the sheriff's office. Brennan's defense attorney, once confident, now scrambled. He tried to discredit Iris, to argue entrapment, to twist the footage as edited or misinterpreted, but the weight of the evidence was overwhelming. Every claim he made was countered by months of meticulously documented proof. By mid-afternoon, the judge reconvened the courtroom. Brennan sat at the defendant's table, looking disoriented. Once he had swagger, once he believed the badge gave him untouchable authority, but now he was stripped of all certainty. Iris was called to the stand. She walked slowly, every step measured, radiating control and authority. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with Brennan's nervous energy. "Agent Daniels," the judge said, "please summarize your findings." She took a deep breath. "Over the past 6 months, we've documented multiple incidents of evidence fabrication, abuse of authority, and obstruction of justice by Deputy Kyle Brennan. The incident involving me was deliberate. He targeted me under the assumption I was just another civilian. He had no idea he was being investigated by the FBI, nor did he know I had recorded his actions in real time." The courtroom remained silent, hanging on every word. "The video evidence," she continued, "along with supporting documentation, shows that Mr. Brennan intentionally planted illegal substances in my vehicle to justify an arrest. These actions violate both state and federal law. They are a breach of public trust and must be prosecuted to the fullest extent." Brennan's face had gone pale. He tried to speak, to interrupt, but the judge banged the gavel. "Order in the court," the judge commanded. The prosecution moved forward, presenting detailed evidence of misconduct. Each piece dismantled Brennan's credibility, showing not only his lies in court but also a broader pattern of corruption that endangered the community he swore to protect. By the end of the day, the judge made an unprecedented ruling. Brennan was immediately suspended from the department pending further investigation, with charges of perjury, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice filed against him. Outside, journalists shouted questions, but Iris declined comment. She walked away, knowing the work wasn't over. The justice system had been tested, and while one corrupt officer was now facing consequences, the larger fight against systemic abuse had only just begun. For the first time in weeks, Iris felt a small sense of closure. She had stepped into a trap, played the long game, and exposed the truth. Brennan's lies, once thought untouchable, had crumbled under the weight of real justice. This wasn't just a personal victory. It was a message to every law enforcement officer abusing their power: deception may work for a moment, but the truth, when pursued relentlessly, always finds a way to the surface. The courtroom, once a theater for false narratives, had become a stage for justice, dramatic, shocking, and irreversible. Iris left with her head held high. The fight had been long, the stakes enormous, but justice had been served. And now, the world had seen that no badge, no matter how shiny, could shield someone from accountability. Weeks later, the case against Deputy Brennan made national headlines. The FBI's investigation revealed not only his personal misconduct, but also a network of officers who had routinely abused their authority. Policies were reviewed, training was revamped, and internal affairs received new oversight to prevent future abuses. Iris returned to her routine duties, but everything had changed. Her colleagues now treated her with heightened respect, and the community she served saw her as more than just an agent. She was a symbol of justice, courage, and accountability. Brennan, meanwhile, faced criminal charges and internal disciplinary actions. His reputation was in ruins, and the law enforcement community whispered about the consequences of overstepping one's authority. The message was clear: no one is above the law. The public's response was overwhelming. Citizens wrote letters, shared stories, and supported initiatives for transparency and fairness in policing. The story of a black woman, underestimated, targeted, but ultimately vindicated, became a rallying cry for truth and justice. Iris reflected on the entire ordeal. What began as a routine investigation had turned into a life-changing confrontation with corruption. She knew there would always be more battles ahead, more lies to uncover, and more people to protect. But for now, justice had spoken. The corrupt had been exposed, and the innocent vindicated. The courtroom drama, the tension, the deception, all of it culminated in one undeniable truth: courage, intelligence, and persistence can topple even the most powerful lies. And as Iris walked away, she carried a quiet pride, knowing she had made a lasting impact on the system and the people it was meant to serve. Justice, in the end, had not only prevailed, it had been seen, remembered, and celebrated.